Point Park men's basketball makes history, the NFL concludes Week 13 of play, and Pittsburgh welcomes a new class of U.S. Hockey Hall of Famers. For the final time this semester, it's time to come on down to Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Bryn Reese, back for another week of exciting sports news. To start, Point Park women's basketball returned home after a tough loss against number 4 West Liberty, looking for their MEC redemption arc versus the number 3 Wheeling Cardinals. The Pioneers entered the game with 3 straight losses under their belt, hoping to break that streak with their first ever MEC victory. The Cardinals took matters to the court with 2 immediate threes, letting the Pioneers know that they're going to have to work for this one. Point Park kept up with the pace for most of the first with some spectacular points in the paint, followed by sharpshooter Alexis Giles draining a triple. But 8 straight points from the Cardinals late in the quarter allowed Wheeling to breeze by to end the first 25-18. Now only 7 points behind, the Pioneers had plenty of time to bounce back, but quarter 2 brought lesser fortune than the latter, as Pioneers shot 3 for 17 from the field and 1 for 6 from 3. The Cardinals increased their lead up to 12 points, and a 10-point quarter from the Pioneers ended the first half 37-28. Now coming out of halftime, Ari Bleda came out firing, draining 2 straight threes to cut the point deficit in thirds. The Cardinals, however, answered almost immediately, scoring 7 straight to rebuild their lead up to 10. Then at just the right time, before Wheeling could really run away with this one, the Pioneers went on a hot streak. They were hungry for a comeback, shooting 8 for 10 from the field and holding the Cardinals to a 35% success rate. Point Park ended the third quarter down only 52-49. Now with 10 minutes to secure this win, the Pioneers began to scramble. We saw a lot of back and forth throughout the period, leading to a 2-point game with 3 minutes remaining. Now the end of this game was a peculiar one. In the final 3 minutes, neither team made a single shot from the field. The Cardinals, however, went to the line 3 different times, draining 5 free throws and securing the bitter win 72-63. Now, what really seemed to stick the nail in the coffin for the Pioneers was their constant struggle to stay in possession. They combined for 25 turnovers, allowing the Cardinals to score 29 points off strictly turnovers. But when they were in possession, the Pioneers weren't too bad on offense, as 4 of Point Park's 5 starters scored in the double digits, and Giles led the way once again with 15 points. Right behind was Emma Pavlik and Bleda with 14 points each. The Pioneers are now 0-3 in conference play, still searching for their first MEC win in program history, and they look to pass that milestone tonight in West Virginia against Concord. Now, reporting on the men's team, we have Edmi Idalis with a Hoops update. Edmi?
Thanks, Bryn. Point Park men's basketball comes back from Thanksgiving break with their first conference win of the season. The Pioneers played Wheeling University on Tuesday, November 26 at home and won a very close game that ended with a score of 75-71. Point Park left the game with an overall record of 4-3 and 1-2 in the conference. This game was a nail-biter, with the scores tied 4 times and the lead changing 7 times. The first half started with a back-and-forth battle, with Point Park securing a short-lived lead with a score at 11-9. That lead comes to a tie near the halfway mark, with both teams at 18 points. The rest of the first half followed that same pattern, with the Pioneers in the lead, only to be caught by a tie later on in the half. But the Pioneers come out of the first half in the lead by 9 points, at 40-31. During the first half, Point Park had a 46.88% field goal success rate, while Wheeling had a 36.11% field goal success rate. The second half mimicked the first half, leaving Point Park in the lead, but towards the end, the Cardinals make valiant attempts to win the game and earn their own first conference win. But they fall short, with Point Park in the lead by 9. The game ends with a score of 75-71, giving Wheeling their first loss in the conference and 3rd loss overall. During the second half, Point Park's field goal success rate dropped to 35.9%, while Wheeling climbed to 37.21%. During their match against Wheeling, Pioneer Nazareth Fisher recorded a double-double with 14 points and 25 rebounds to tie the conference record for rebounds in a single game. He was then voted the Mountain East Conference Men's Basketball Co-Player of the Week. The Pioneers are set to face Penn State Fayette, this being their 3rd game against a branch of Penn State. The game will be on Monday, December 9th, tip-off at 7 p.m. at home. Let's go Pioneers! In other news, athletics hosted a huge baseball event over fall break, and Bryn has a recap for us. Bryn?
Thanks, Edmee. Now, in an effort to raise money for what seems to be a new baseball field, Point Park and the Department of Athletics hosted a fundraising event titled Decades in the Dugout on Friday, November 22nd. The event included silent auctions, dinner, and a celebration of Point Park baseball's rich history dating back to 1967. Pirates play-by-play announcer and Point Park alum Greg Brown hosted the event alongside retired Pirates player and current commentator Steve Blass. The evening began at 5 p.m. with a reception in the Pittsburgh Playhouse, which included a ceremony honoring past players, teams, and coaches. In over 55 seasons, the Pioneers had 12 NAIA World Series appearances, 34 NAIA regional appearances, and over 1,000 wins. Baseball was Point Park's first leading athletics program, and the university has since expanded to 16 different teams. After half a century of NAIA competition, the team makes its Division II debut in the Mountain East Conference this season. The reception was followed by a dinner, allowing teammates and coaches, old and new, to mingle. Current coach Lauren Torres said, quote, "Decades in the Dugout was more than a fundraising event or a celebration of Point Park's over 700 winning percentage throughout its history. It turned out to be a celebration of 7 decades of friendship and Point Park baseball success on and off the field," end quote. In the silent auction, athletics offered big-ticket items such as a VIP Nike experience with the Nike CEO, a signed Paul Skeens All-Star jersey, and Steelers Club tickets. Starting bids ranged between $100 and $1,200. Per Point Park Athletics, all proceeds from the night went to a field titled, quote, "Alumni Field, there's no place like home," end quote. That's all for Point Park news this week, but the games continue. Now, the semester may be winding down, but our Point Park athletes have a big week ahead of them. Indoor track and field begins on Friday at the Youngstown State Icebreaker, and men's hoops returns home on Monday to face Penn State Fayette at 7. Then on Wednesday, men's and women's basketball have an early doubleheader versus West Virginia Wesleyan at home at 1 and 3 p.m. You can tune into these games in person for free with a Point Park ID or stream live on mountaineast.tv. And as always, go Pioneers! Next, we have some action-packed local and NFL reports. All this and more after the break. Welcome back. Now we have Jonah Summers with a Pittsburgh Sports Update. Jonah?
Thanks, Brent. And wow, what a time to be a Pittsburgh sports fan. Let's start this week off with Mike Sullivan and the Pens. A rocky start to the season was quickly turned around after the Penguins won 3 straight against Salt Lake Club. So what once seemed laughable and unrealistic to say, it is now drifting towards the realm of reality that the Penguins make a solid playoff spot. It is kind of funny that as soon as fans talk about the rebuild and packaging up players to ship off for prospects, turns them into a different player on the ice. Erik Karlsson has looked great in his last few games after his slow start to the season. Tristan Jarry, who we know has never been on the positive talk of town in recent memory, has his wins in his last 2 starts in Rucker McGroarty, has 5 points in his last 6 games in Wilkes-Barre, and said he is, quote, waiting to pop one off and get back to the NHL, contributing for the Penguins as fast as possible. Pitt volleyball continues to impress here late in the season. Since the last time I reported on this team, Pitt has lost 0 matches to any opponent. The squad got a 3-2 dub over Georgia Tech last week to secure the ACC championship. Star Tori Stafford recorded 16 kills and 8 digs, and Olivia Babcock wrote down her second career triple-double with 18 kills, 12 digs, and a career-high 10 blocks. So as of right now, Pitt remains at number 1 in the country and earned the number 1 seed in the playoff for the first time in program history. So Pitt will take on Morehead State in the first round in 2 days at the Peterson Event Center, looking to carry that hot streak into the playoffs. And speaking of Pitt, over break, men's basketball had a wow of a finish in Columbus against Ohio State. After a nail-biting 2 halves of regulation and a lot of back and forth, it was Zach Austin who got the call down 2 at the top of the key to hit the biggest triple of the year and put the Panthers ahead by 1 with no time left on the clock. The win earned Pitt the recognition as the 18th ranked team in the country, this being the highest ranking for the program in the last 10 years. Every Pitt fan remembers the Jamie Dixon era for this program, so to reach a milestone like that is a huge confidence boost, not only for fans, but head coach Jeff Capel as well. The Panthers will take on Mississippi State tonight, and they get some ACC action against Virginia Tech on Saturday. And this was the one we've been waiting for, Steelers-Bengals, and it had all of the emotion. A must-win for Pittsburgh to stay atop the AFC North, and a scary splash play offense led by that Burrow and Chase duo. Tensions ran high all week long, and questions about the legitimacy of Russell Wilson and this offense were lingering after that loss to Cleveland. But the scoring started in this one with a Cam Taylor-Britt pick 6 to get the Bengals up 7-0 early. So early confusion here for Arthur Smith and this offense, but it was Najee Harris who got things going on the second drive for Pittsburgh, where they showed some flashes of good early on, and then this weird out route to who else but George Pickens to get the Steelers on the board here in the first. So buckle up here with the scoring, because little did we know we were about to see a Russell Wilson shootout. Boom, Russ on 2nd and 8 drops back and has his man over the middle. It's Calvin Austin, who took a big hit early on in the game, who helped the Steelers to tie this one up yet again in the first half. Now, after going down another touchdown to that lethal Bengals offense, Russ has it on first down to his man Cordell Patterson with a big gain. So good to see him making some waves for this offense. Then a red zone opportunity, and Russ just pitches it to his guy Najee Harris, who has some beautiful blocking up front by Darnell Washington. Then the Steelers have an opportunity to build on a 3-point lead, and they do just that. A bomb over the right hash finds Pat Freiermuth, and the Steelers go up 10. At this point in the game, we were all thinking, wow, when was the last time the offense has looked this good? Well, I know when. It was 2018. This offense got the keys in this game and caught fire when they needed it most against a divisional opponent, a tough one at that. But it wasn't just the offense. Nate Herbag with a huge strip sack, and the rookie Peyton Wilson on the scoop and score, and the Steelers are now dominating in this one. A beautiful defensive effort late in the game when all the cards were on the table, and with the chance to ice the game, Mike Tomlin turns to the guy who got them here in the first place, Justin Fields, on the read option to get that first down finally, and the Steelers will walk into Cincinnati and run away in dominant fashion. A huge win for this team, moving to 9-3 and staying 2 games up on the Baltimore Ravens. But the question is always, how much of a contender can this team be? I think that whenever this guy, Russell Wilson, stays hot, the Steelers will always have a chance at going all the way. Russell Wilson, absolute video game numbers in this one. 414 yards, 10.9 yards per attempt, the second best passing game of his career. Remember, this is a guy who is a champion and looks like fine wine. It looks as if, another one isn't as far away as we thought it was a year ago. So as the weeks go by and we get closer and closer to the playoffs, the question right now is the AFC, because as the NFC, which pretty much seemed wide open, has just a few solid teams in contention, and the AFC has been looking better and better. But quite frankly, I think that on any given Sunday, the Steelers, led by Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin, can beat any team in the conference and secure a spot. And I mean, only if this offense can continue to do the things they did this past week, and then I think there is not a whole lot that can stop them from moving the ball, and the defense will follow suit. So the Steelers will host Cleveland on Sunday at 1 o'clock, so we will look forward to that one. Now I'll be passing things off over to Matt Palangi for our weekly NFL recap. Matt?
Thanks, Jonah. Thanksgiving week is over, which means we had another week of football that got played. Let's get a recap of what happened. Starting off on Thanksgiving, we had Jared Goff throw for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Lions' victory against the Bears. Cowboys running back Rico Dowdle went off for 112 rushing yards and 1 touchdown in their win over the Giants. And Jordan Love throwing for 274 and 2 in the Packers' victory over the Dolphins. We had a Friday football game between divisional rivals, the Chiefs and the Raiders. The game was neck and neck late in the fourth quarter when they had the opportunity came for the Raiders to take the lead, but as the drive went on, the Raiders went too quick for their own good, snapping the ball before they were set, and the snap hit Raiders quarterback Aiden O'Connell somewhere that wasn't his hands for a fumble. The whistle was blown, but the Chiefs recovered the botched snap for a fumble recovery, with all viewers wondering what just happened. After what was a long discussion between the referees, no, I mean like a very long discussion about the penalty on the field because it looked like it could have been multiple penalties. A false start would have called the play dead, allowing it to be Raiders' ball but 5 yards back, and then calls like illegal shift or too many men on the field would let the play stand and the Kansas City Chiefs would prevail again. The play was ruled a fumble recovered by the Chiefs with an illegal shift against the Raiders, resulting in the Chiefs kneeling the clock out for a 2-point win with the final score of 19-17, giving them yet another close win. And for most football fans, sigh, as the back-to-back champs are now 11-1 with all of America, especially the Raiders Nation, in shock over this ending. The Chiefs have won in miraculous ways this year, and this one is no different. Remember the blocked field goal against the Broncos in Week 10, which was, by the way, another divisional matchup? Maybe it's some black magic. This season has raised many questions on the Chiefs. How are they winning all these close games, struggling against poor statistical teams, but managing to only lose by 1? Is there a three-peat coming, or will these subpar performances come and bite them when it is playoff time? There's only one way to find out. Let's just keep watching as the season continues. Anyways, on Sunday, a scary moment happened as in the Jags vs. Texans AFC South matchup. Trevor Lawrence was hit hard after sliding by Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair in the second quarter. On X, Al-Shaair wrote, quote, "To Trevor, I genuinely apologize to you for what ended up happening," end quote. Shaair also mentioned how he is playing every game as hard as possible and did not see Lawrence sliding. Quote, "It all happened so fast," end quote. Shaair also stated that he was receiving racist and Islamophobic remarks after this hit, which is definitely uncalled for Al-Shaair, who has now been suspended for 3 games. At the 4 o'clock mark, we had the battle of the 2 top runners in the league this year. Saquon Barkley, who was first in rushing yards, second in rushing touchdowns, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who got to play against Derrick Henry, who was second in rushing yards and first in rushing touchdowns, and the Baltimore Ravens. The Eagles would just end up running, but also playing better, winning this game 24-19 and advancing to 10-2. And then we go to Sunday night. Sunday night brought us a chilly battle between the Niners and the Buffalo Bills, with Josh Allen dominating and the Bills winning 35-10 and advancing to a 10-2 record. Josh Allen had 3 total touchdowns on the night, with my favorite being this pass to Amari Cooper, who then laterals it back to Josh Allen for a rushing score. Allen's fantasy owners definitely slept well that night, and the Bills are starting to look like AFC favorites. On Monday night, now we saw a historic performance by Jerry Jeudy, who went off for 9 receptions, 235 yards, and 1 touchdown against his former team, the Denver Broncos. But some costly famous Jameis interceptions would be too much for the Browns, and the Denver Broncos would win 42-31 in what was a surprising Monday Night Classic. The NFL Week 14 will start off with an NFC North Thursday night battle between the Packers and the Lions. That's all from me this week. Back to you at the desk, Bryn.
Thanks, guys. After the break, more on what's new in the sports world. Stay tuned.
Take them cue and open their mics.
Today marked the 1-year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette strike.
Point Park University just hosted a campus-wide meeting.
Plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025.
Welcome back. Next, we have Megan Lukic with an update on the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame induction. Megan?
Thanks, Bryn. Tonight, here in Pittsburgh, the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame is welcoming its class of 2024 inductees. This year's class includes the 2002 sled hockey team, former Chicago Blackhawks owner Frederick McLaughlin, Olympian Brianna Decker, and former Pittsburgh Penguins forwards Matt Cullen and Kevin Stevens. The 2002 Paralympic sled hockey team was the first American team to win gold at the Paralympic Games. Sled hockey was not introduced until 1994, and the U.S. did not have a team competing until 1998. The team had finished in last place at the previous World Championship and only qualified for the Paralympics because the U.S. was the host country. While at the 2002 Games in Salt Lake City, Utah, Team USA went undefeated and outscored opponents 26-6 on their way to the gold medal. The late Frederick McLaughlin was the original owner of the Chicago Blackhawks, establishing the team in 1926. He helped lead the Blackhawks to their first Stanley Cup in 1934 and was in play for the team's second Stanley Cup in 1938. McLaughlin was a big advocate for growing the game of hockey in the Midwestern United States, even aiding Lake Forest College in getting a rink for both the school and the local community. Brianna Decker's career includes many accolades, such as an NCAA championship, 8 World Championships, and 3 Olympic medals, including 2 silver in 2014 and 2022, and 1 gold in 2018. During her time with the women's national team program, Decker put up 81 goals and 89 assists for a total of 170 points. Following her playing career, she joined the coaching staff of the under-18 women's national team, helping to guide them to gold medals in 2024 and 2020, silver in 2019, and bronze in 2023. Matt Cullen was one of 2 American-born players to play in 1,500 games or more in the NHL. Drafted in 1996 by the Anaheim Ducks, Cullen is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, winning 1 with the Carolina Hurricanes in 2006, and then back-to-back championships with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2016 and 2017. During his extensive NHL career, he racked up 731 points in the regular season and 58 points in 132 playoff games. And finally, Kevin Stevens was also a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins, being a key asset in the team's runs in 1991 and 1992. Stevens long held the record for most goals recorded by an American in an NHL season with 55 before it was broken by Austin Matthews in 2022. Stevens recorded 726 points in 874 regular season games and 106 playoff points in 103 playoff games. After retiring in 2002, Stevens began working as a special assignment scout for the Penguins organization. Congratulations to all of this year's inductees on incredible careers, as well as this achievement of being named to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Next, McKenna Smith is here reporting on a poor losing streak in Premier League. McKenna?
Thanks, Megan. Manchester City has done the unthinkable again, but not in a positive way. A team once hailed as untouchable is now grappling with a historic losing season that's sending shockwaves across football. 7 games without a win and 6 of those defeats across all competitions, not only unprecedented for manager Pep Guardiola, but also a sharp departure from City's status as the unbeaten juggernaut of European football. The significance of this slump just goes beyond just a bad patch of form. For context, Guardiola has never endured a streak like this in his managerial career, spanning Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Manchester City, in which he has won 39 trophies. This losing streak hit a new low after a 4-0 loss to Tottenham Hotspurs at the Etihad. This historic loss ended a 52-match unbeaten streak at home in all competitions, and additionally, the loss also ended City's remarkable streak of scoring in 75 consecutive home games. Many pundits are saying that this stretch could redefine how teams approach City. Previously seen as invincible, when asked about the streak, Liverpool great Gary Neville had some thoughts, quote, "This losing streak is significant because it exposes a vulnerability we've never seen from Guardiola's teams. Teams aren't just beating City, they're outplaying them in key areas, and that is shocking," end quote. But the timing of this slump has sparked serious debate. Is it merely coincidental that City's struggles began immediately after losing Ballon d'Or winner and Euro best player Rodri to a season-ending injury? In the Prem last season, Manchester City did not lose a single game in which Rodri played. However, City did lose 4 out of the 5 games he missed. Last season, Rodri has lost 1 game in the past 18 months for club and country, and the loss of his presence is sending ripple effects through the entire squad. And the numbers tell the story. Manchester City, who has conceded the fewest goals in the Premier League last season, are now leaking goals at an alarming rate. Pep Guardiola is more than aware of the struggles, saying, quote, "We are not the same team without Rodri, but this is football, injuries happen, and we have to find a solution. I believe in my players, we will turn this around," end quote. Adding to the drama, the streak began just after Guardiola signed a 3-year contract extension. While the timing might be coincidental, some critics argue the slump raises questions about whether City underestimated their reliance on certain players during the summer transfer window. This losing streak could have major implications for City. Their latest 2-0 defeat to Premier League and Champions League leader Liverpool has dropped them into 5th place in the league, trailing Liverpool by 11 points. City's Premier League title defense is now in serious jeopardy. Meanwhile, in the Champions League, they now sit in 17th place, and their hopes of retaining the trophy could be in serious danger if that slump persists. Manchester City play an informed Nottingham Forest squad today to try and end this winless streak. And that's all from me and the rest of us. Back to you at the desk, Bren.
Thanks, everyone. When we come back, we discuss and predict the future of the college football season in our Case of the Week. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now it's officially time for Conference Gold in the college football scene, and I'm here with Austin, Ryan, and Nathan to discuss who we think will be crowned winners and kind of what's going to happen after. So to start, we're kind of going to go by conference, predict what we think is going to happen. We'll start with the Big Ten. What are our thoughts? Austin?
I mean, when we look at the Big Ten this year, I mean, it's been back and forth all year long. We've seen lots of teams kind of compete in the top 5. We saw Ohio State at one point in time. We thought they were going to do something. Then we saw Penn State kind of have a short stint of success. That obviously has kind of failed since. And then Oregon, I mean, they've been dominating for the second half of the season thus far. I think Oregon's going to be a big shot later on in the playoffs this year, and I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
And I have Oregon as well. And right now we sit at a 3-point favorite and go in this game, which is, I think it's great. It's grateful for Penn State. I think this should be a 10-point difference. I think Oregon has a chance to beat Penn State by 10 because Oregon's offense is high-fired, and their defense for Oregon also makes teams throw the ball. And one thing Penn State don't like to do is give that ball to Drew Aller. And Drew Aller is not going to be throwing that ball anywhere in this playoffs because he just turns the ball over too much, and it's Oregon's offense is also ranked 3rd in the nation in interceptions. So I think Oregon is going to take away with the Big Ten this year.
Nathan?
I think it'll be a close game. I mean, Penn State's defense is really good. I mean, they've been holding opponents like crazy. Now, let's be honest, though, about the Big Ten. There's 4 teams, and then the rest of the conference is very mediocre. I mean, Michigan's like 7-5, and that's like the 5th best team right now. So, I mean, they will get 4 teams for sure. Ohio State probably should have dropped more in the latest college football rankings. When you lose at home to a 6-5 Michigan team that was, I mean, not playing well this season to say. I mean, they lost so much. So I think it will be a close game, though, because Oregon's offense really good, but Penn State's defense, something else.
If we're all in agreement with this, we'll go on to SEC. What are our thoughts on the SEC?
I mean, I'm just gonna go in my pocket real quick and go horns up on this game right here. I got Texas over Georgia.
I have to agree. I mean, Texas is a dominant team, and I get they got killed earlier this season against Georgia. This is a different Texas team than Texas played Georgia the first time around. Quinn Ewers is on what Quinn Ewers was supposed to be at the beginning of the year. He's finally picking up the steam. And I just feel like this is a get-back game for Texas. They got embarrassed. Remember, we got embarrassed at home against Georgia. So this is their get-back game, and it's time for them to take over the SEC like they were built to do 5 years ago. Now they're finally in the SEC. It's time for them to win the SEC.
I think this will be a lot closer than the first iteration of Texas-Georgia. I mean, because, they just didn't show up. It was kind of crazy. But I do think Texas, I agree with you guys, will hold on and win this game. However, I do think Georgia's being slept on a little bit. I know they lost. They barely beat Georgia Tech. It was just a really crazy game. Georgia Tech up in that game the whole time. But, they just battled. And we saw it in the Alabama game, too. They battled back. They almost won that game. I think their offense is better than people give them credit for. I think Carson Beck, people are hating on him a little bit. I know he's throwing a lot of interceptions this year, but I think Georgia will keep it close. I think they're a really good football team. I think both teams are. But Texas defense in the end, just too much.
I'm so glad you said that, actually. The deciding factor for this game is going to be Carson Beck. If Carson Beck shows up, it's going to be closer than people think. If Carson Beck doesn't show up, I believe Texas is going to run away with this one.
I agree with you. I mean, Carson Beck, it's either one day he's like a Heisman favorite Carson Beck, or the next day he looks like a Kenny Pickett in the Steelers. I mean, it's like a night and day difference every single week. And honestly, the bigger games is when he fooled the most. I mean, I stayed up and watched all 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech, and he did not look like the Carson Beck that we saw earlier this year. Right. And I'm scared that even Georgia Tech's defense is nowhere close to what the Longhorns have, and that's why I think it's going to be the deciding factor is the Texas defense on top of Georgia's quarterback not being able to keep the ball on the Georgia side.
Yeah, we'll switch gears now. Big 12 thoughts.
Yeah, the Big 12 has been a catastrophe this year. I mean, we've seen so many teams up and down. At one point it was Colorado. Then we saw Arizona State up in here, Iowa State. It was kind of back and forth with some BYU at one point in time. Now it's a matchup between Iowa State, Arizona State. This is probably going to be the deciding factor on who takes the 12th seed come playoff time. I believe in this championship, Arizona State's going to win by 3.
I have Arizona State winning, but the thing about this Big 12, you said it's been bad this year. This is the only team in the Big 12 that's going to be inside the college football playoffs. No other team inside that conference deserves a spot in there. And arguably, you know how we have those Power 4 spots? They shouldn't even be in the Power 4 spots to begin with. I'd rather have a Notre Dame, an Independent, or a Boise State in that 4th spot. I just feel like this Big 12 conference has been pitiful, to say the least. It's going to continue being pitiful because, again, Colorado loses half the rosters this year. West Virginia has no roster right now. Iowa State is older. Arizona State is an older team, but Arizona State's also a complete team. That's why they're leading the Big 12 right now. That'll be the only team we'll see from that conference inside the playoffs this year.
Yeah, Arizona State, Cam Scatabo, their running back, very good. He's been really unheralded this year. I don't think nobody's really talking about him. But I do think it is interesting about the Big 12. It's been the craziest conference so far for sure. I mean, so much parity and so many 2-loss teams. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's why in this conference, this championship, you have no idea. Because we didn't even know who the 2 teams were until the very last second. Arizona State, they've been really under the radar all year. Everybody's talking about Colorado, Kansas State, and Iowa State. Here comes Arizona State. Nobody thought they were picked like last in the Big 12. And here they are. And I think they do pull off. I don't know if it's an upset, but I think they get the dub.
Yep. All right. Last one we're going to talk about, ACC. What are our thoughts?
I mean, this is another conference that goes back and forth all year. Right now we got SMU and Clemson, and I got to tell you, I got to go to the Pitt and Clemson game, and it's safe to say Clay Cublick's going to be playing on Sundays in the next couple years. But SMU, honestly, this is my dark horse team in the playoffs this year. I believe they can make some noise. I believe they can upset some SEC teams, possibly even some Big Ten teams. I'm going to go SMU with a dominant win over Clemson.
Yeah, I was also at that Clemson game on the sideline. I was able to see that defense right in front of me, and they struggled against Pitt. Mind, this is a Pitt team that didn't have Holstein play, and they also didn't have a mobile quarterback. SMU has a pure dual-threat quarterback, something I don't think Clemson's seen except last week against South Carolina, which their defense got all ran over. And it's going to happen again this week. SMU is going to take over this division, which I'm very happy about. Even though I am a Pitt guru, I'm very happy to see a team to walk into this ACC and take over. because this is a wake-up call for the rest of the ACC saying, hey, we're not as good as we thought we were. And you know how you say the Big 12 is the most parity team? I think the ACC is the most parity out of all the conferences. If you really look at it, every other week there's been a new number one. I mean, it was Miami. It was Clemson. It was Pitt for the first 7 weeks of the year. I mean, the ACC is an amazing conference. And I feel like you said the Big Ten only had like that 4 teams.
Right.
ACC goes off 1 year, the entire ACC could be very good. We have very consistent teams, which is what college football needs. And I feel like the SMU is going to be that team to be above it this year and for a couple years down the road.
Yeah, I do also think I agree with your point completely on SMU being a dark horse. Nobody's really talking about them at all in the national landscape in terms of actually. And also, like, people are saying if they lose this ACC championship game, they could be out of the playoff entirely, which I completely disagree with, even though their schedule hasn't been the toughest this season. I do think Kevin Jennings is a really great quarterback. He tore up Pitt, like we mentioned. I will disagree, though, about the ACC being an amazing conference. I mean, I watched it all year. I was hoping it would be just for, because I'm a Pitt guy as well. It was very similar to the Big Ten in terms of there were a few teams that were pretty good, and then there's a big drop-off. After, I mean, you got Louisville and Clemson and Miami and SMU. There's really nothing else after that. There's just a lot of mediocre teams as well. I think the ACC and Big 12 and Big 10 really are similar in that regard, where the SEC #1 overall. But I got SMU clean sweep, I think.
Yeah. All right, so next time we're going to be here on Sideline, it's going to be next year in January. So we're going to talk about who we think is going to go on to win it all. I want to get each of your takes on that. We'll start with Austin.
I'm going to be honest. I know this is the favorite here, but I'm going to go Oregon. I don't see a world where any other team right now, either in the SEC, Big 10, or Big 12, can upset Oregon. I mean, head coach Dan Lanning, he is the easy #1 candidate for head coaching in the NFL going into this offseason. Dylan Gabriel, underrated quarterback, absolute stud, dual threat. I just don't see any other team stopping him so far, so I'm going to go Oregon all the way.
All right, Ryan?
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to go Horns, where it's going to be the Longhorns this year. I mean, this is the Longhorns' season to win. They have, for the first time, and the time they've been able to compete for the national championship, this is the most complete Longhorns team we've seen in a very long time. And I agree, Oregon's been dominated all year, and that coach for Oregon is an NFL candidate coach. But I still think this Longhorns team has a chance to win it all. I feel like their defense can help limit Daniel Gabriel when needed. I feel like that offense could finally kick off in the playoffs and do what they're supposed to be doing in the playoff season. I feel like this national championship is going to go back to the SEC, and it's going to go back to the Longhorns this year.
I mean, this is really wide open this year. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of teams you can make an argument for. I do agree with Oregon. I think it could be Oregon-Texas in the championship game when it's all said and done. But I think Oregon, they've just been #1 all year. They've been tested a little bit so far. I was actually tempted to go with Ohio State. I don't know, just because they got the most talent out of any of these teams remaining other than maybe Georgia. But I'm going to stay away from that, I think. But I'm going to go with Oregon, I think, over Texas. I think that defense for Texas is really good, but I think Oregon's offense, and we've seen, Georgia was able to, mess with Texas defensively. I think Texas defense is kind of vulnerable. I'm going to go Oregon.
So I'm going to disagree with both of you just real quick. So the thing about the Oregon, which I don't like, is that their schedule, they played one good team all year. That was Ohio State all year. And I get they beat them at home. But the thing about it, Texas had to go through Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, so many more SEC teams where they battled. Even though they got their doors blown off by Georgia, they still were able to make a fight. And that's something that, for me, going in, that I'll be scared to play Texas. Because they play teams that have NFL talent all over the place. Well, Oregon's played, one team with NFL talent on it inside the entire Big Ten Conference. That's why I have Texas winning. Because they played more better teams that are normally in the college football finals every year.
Well, I'll tell you this, one of two things. Number one, Ohio State's not going to go anywhere near the championship game.
No.
I just want to make that abundantly clear. And number two, as great as Oregon is, their offensive line is 3rd in the country in pass protection. I have a feeling that Texas is going to struggle against that pass protection from the Oregon Ducks. I mean, like you said earlier, they got their brakes blown off by Georgia. I don't necessarily see them being able to compete with Oregon once it comes championship time. Now, Texas throughout the playoffs, they're going to be a dominant force, no questions asked. Quinn Ewers is a first-round caliber quarterback in the NFL draft. But as of right now, I still believe this is Oregon's championship year.
All right, I'm going to have to cut you guys off there because that is all the time we have for this week. From everyone here at Sideline, we hope you have a safe and restful holiday season, and be sure to join us next semester at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.